All right, you're up. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us this evening.
Yeah.
And
thank you for inviting me on.
yeah, you're good to go.
Cool. How many people do we have on the?
There's a couple on there.
Cool. Okay.
I'm just gonna stay here in case I need to let other people in.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for being in person here.
Thank you.
And thank you for everyone joining on the Zoom. As it says on the screen here, my name is Dan McCoy. I'm a Paralympian, two-time world championship, gold medal winner in sled hockey, and a certified personal trainer. I competed in the Sochi 2014 Paralympic Winter Games. So got the logo there from Sochi, the medal, which I actually brought in person. So that's a picture. That was actually the first picture I saw of the medals when they were kind of unveiled. We weren't really told what they were going to be. So when I saw that, I was like, is that, I think it's glass, like crystal etched in there, but first time I've ever seen that in a
Did you think you would win before you went?
Yes.
Okay.
In a way, yes. I mean, I was pretty confident we were going to, but I mean, it's a competition, so you never really know. And it's hockey, so Canada is obviously a pretty formidable force, or they were back then. I think this past Paralympics, the US beat Canada 5-0 in the gold medal game. Not much of a gold medal game there, but we ended up beating Canada, as I'll get into a little later. But we ended up beating them in semifinals and beat Russia in the gold medal game, only 1-0. So then there's the jersey, and my dad actually took this picture of the medal kind of draped on top of the jersey. It's kind of hard to see from where you guys are at, but they actually etched, or they sewed each year that the Team USA, either stand-up hockey team or sled hockey team, won gold medals. So it's kind of a cool addition there on the jersey. So let's see, right, clicker. I always like those the red
The little
dot,
remote ones,
the red
yeah,
dot,
with
like
the
remote
light.
things. Yeah, I love those. All right, so as I'm sure you're aware, I have a disability. So I was born with spina bifida, myelomeningocele, L3-4, and hydrocephalus. So basically what I usually tell people, if you're not familiar with spina bifida, my back was just messed up when I was born. There are, I believe, about 4 different levels of spina bifida, and myelomeningocele is actually the most severe, technically. Although I'm able to, can't feel my feet at all. So if you've ever seen the movie Mr. Deeds, Adam Sandler, I've never tried that with the, the fire poker thing in the foot, but I've had friends offer to try it, I guess. And I've had like math books and things thrown at my feet, and just nothing happens. I don't even flinch or anything. But growing up, with a disability, you kind of learn to laugh at things and kind of have a weird sense of humor. So I very rarely get offended by anything, especially disabilities. So there's me, and actually a very ironic thing that my parents still, or my mom specifically, makes fun of me about is, one, she says you put me through hell because, she had to give birth to a kid with a disability and spina bifida and all this kind of stuff. But you can see when I was born, I had 4 shunt revisions, which basically means this vein looking thing in my neck, it's called a shunt, drains fluid from my brain into the pleural cavity in my lung. Originally, it was from my brain into my chest, and my chest cavity. It got infected when I was about 6 years old. But 4 shunt revisions before the age of 8 months old. Again, basically brain surgeries. So I think, like as we were talking about earlier with executive function, it's kind of one of the things that just happens, getting concussions before you even play a sport and all that. So club feet repair, and that's where the feet casts come from. And apparently I can, I got quad function and everything, so I can kick my feet. Apparently I would just launch the cast off my feet as my feet were trying to heal as a kid. So my parents would say, like, as they're feeding me or like changing me or anything, I'm just kicking my feet and the cast will just go flying and hit him in the face or something. Yeah, so needless to say, that's why my mom said I just put her through hell when I was, and I still do, because I'm her son. Few minor surgeries before I was a year old. So the day I was born, I actually had the scar on the back of my head to put the shunt in. Had that done the day I was born. My back closure when I was born, and then a few other things, the club feet repair before I was a year old. So it's quite an eventful first year, I guess. But again, my parents are rock stars, so they handled it Not without help, but a lot of times growing up with a disability, you hear that, kids are going to have a lot of issues, like a lot of trauma and these kind of things. To me, I 100% believe it's way worse for the parents. Because I work in a hospital 1 day a week, but work in a hospital, I don't like hospitals. Not a fan. I hate IVs. I call myself a glorified, self-proclaimed gym bro, but you get an IV near me and it's like I'm a 4-year-old little girl. Like, it's horrifying. I hate IVs, hate needles, never get a tattoo, any of that kind of stuff. So it's very funny for people watching me to see me, having a surgery or something, and the littlest thing, I'm fine in surgeries because I get knocked out, but as soon as they come at me with the IV, I'm trying to call security or something. I think I tried to do that actually when I was 6. So needless to say, all that kind of stuff was, I have some, I guess, PTSD from it, but way more so my parents had to, deal with all that kind of stuff. And actually, when I was about 6 years old, my shunt failed. So I'm getting into all this stuff, but when I was 6 years old, my shunt failed for the first time. And I think I had about, I want to say 10 to 15 surgeries, maybe.
Wow.
A bunch of different things like PICC lines.
Like needles.
Exactly, yeah. I just felt like a pincushion when I was 6, right? So it's, I feel like it's a valid thing to not like needles or anything, but I've had nurses and doctors just be like, suck it up, it's for your own good, for your health. I still say there's a better way to do it other than just helping people, to each their own, I guess. That's why I'm not a doctor. But yeah, 6 years old, I actually remember waking up during a surgery. I have a couple scars on my neck where they actually had to pull the shunt through my neck because it was infected. The anesthesiologist told my parents, oh yeah, he's got enough anesthesia and he'll be fine for I think it's just supposedly a quick surgery. There was not enough anesthesia. So I woke up, didn't really feel any pain because I guess there was a localized numbing thing.
Do you remember?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so I remember feeling a really tight, tugging sensation, feeling like a vein was being pulled out of my neck, and I just remember screaming. No pain or anything, but all I remember was my mom to the right of me holding my arms down. I think another med student or a nurse or something holding my other left arm down, and then the doctor, or maybe it was a resident, I don't know, tugging at my neck and everything. So again, not the most fun experience, but having seen my other family members and my friends go through surgeries, it's absolutely worse seeing someone go through surgery or a recovery more so than it is going through yourself. And I 100% stand by that. For as much as I've been through, seeing someone else go through something similar or even worse, you definitely feel powerless. And I can't imagine as a parent seeing your kid go through that. So again, hats off to my parents for dealing with that, still treating me like an able-bodied person. That's one of the things that a lot of doctors told my parents, your son's going to be born with this very severe disability. He's never going to be able to walk, talk, think on his own. This kind of stuff. I can walk, although thankfully I live in Pittsburgh where we got the penguins, so I waddle like a penguin. Don't have the best balance, but I always say that, the blessing of having the type of disability that I have is I can walk and use a wheelchair.
Oh, that's great.
So a lot of times people think, oh, I have to use a wheelchair, I'm going to be sticking out with a sore thumb. I mean, I don't really have a choice. I kind of stick out no matter what. And honestly, a lot of times when I'm parking in a handicap spot here, I feel like I shouldn't be parking in it because I don't feel disabled enough sometimes. And I feel like I'll get weird looks if, I look like I'm just walking normally. Nobody in the right mind is going to think I walk normally. I waddle so much, a small gust of wind could knock me over. And I find myself a lot of times exaggerating my walk because I think it's not enough. People can't tell. I don't know. Anyway, all of that, my parents raising me the way they raised me, having one doctor say all this kind of stuff could be true. There could be a lot of issues. Even your older son could have, issues making friends and things growing up and all that. Meanwhile, my brother is now a physical medicine and rehab doctor, getting his fellowship in Colorado. So I think some of it he attests to, growing up, seeing me in hospitals and everything. He was completely comfortable with all of it, and was right there next to my bedside, even changing tubes and things as a kid and taking care of me however I needed. So I don't think it really affected him that much. if anything, it affected him in a good way, because he's helping other people now and helping other families, not treat their kids with disabilities as fragile or, needing, constant attention or any more attention than any other kid, right? So with all of that in mind, my parents got both my brother and myself in sports growing up. And this is another thing I attribute to all of like the confidence that I have in my disability and seeing it as a blessing and a positive rather than negative. So played every sport I could growing up, some non-adaptive sports like able-bodied, played karate. I guess I did karate with crutches, forearm, Lofstrand crutches. Growing up, played t-ball, and one of my favorite pictures, I didn't put in here, but one of my favorite pictures ever is my mom holding my crutches as I'm trying to take a swing at a tee with the ball on it, and the bat is in front of the tee and the ball's still there. I love the picture. It's so funny. Meanwhile, what was it, like 12 years later, 16 years later, I'm getting a gold medal. So it's pretty cool. Like a lot of times you think, oh, high level athletes, they can do whatever sport they want. No, no, not at all. So everything happens for a reason, but again, tried every sport out there, flag football in 5th grade, intramural basketball, played lacrosse. I was a goalie in lacrosse because I wanted to play the same sports as my brother, older brother growing up. Couldn't run or anything or else I'd fall over. So my parents were like, hey, just stand in net and get hit by a rubber ball going 100 miles an hour. Cool. So, and again, as I mentioned earlier, can't feel my feet. I would have multiple shots taken at my feet and like my lower legs and not really even flinch and just keep moving. Meanwhile, the crowd's going, oh, that's gotta hurt. I'm like, I can't feel it. I don't know. But yeah, had a lot of welts and things, a lot of bruises growing up. But again, what kid, what self-respecting kid, I guess, doesn't get those growing up? If you don't get welts and bruises and things and you're playing sports, you're really growing up correctly. I don't know. But adaptive sports I've played, sled hockey, wheelchair basketball, kind of just for fun intramurally, and hand cycling. I've actually competed in the marathon here in Pittsburgh. Not this past year, but every year pre-pandemic, I've been able to compete in that. So at age 8, after watching the 2002 Paralympic team in Salt Lake City win the gold medal, and watching my teammate here, who he's retired now. I think he's, I'm gonna say like 12 years older than me, possibly, but saw, his name's Josh Wirt, saw him win the gold medal in Salt Lake City. He was the youngest player on the team at the time. And this picture was actually taken, I believe, in Windsor, Ontario, when he came back from the Paralympics. And I saw his gold medal for the first time. And I told my parents, this is what I want to do, in a whatever 8-year-old voice sounds like. This is what I want to do. I want to win an Olympic gold medal. No idea what the Paralympics were at the time. And actually the sled hockey team was fairly new. It was actually the first gold medal they'd ever won in the Paralympics in sled hockey. So seeing that as an 8-year-old kid and having, the legendary parents that I have, worked as hard as I could from 8 years old to 20 years old. And I had full support of my family and friends. And it honestly wasn't until maybe 2 years before the Paralympics, but almost happening, that I realized, wow, this is actually just as much my family's dream as it is mine. And you don't see that a lot, especially kids getting into sports, from a young age. A lot of times parents and kids even are going to say, okay, I want to do this. And then the next day they change to something else. I didn't do that. And, thankfully, by the grace of God, my parents stuck with me with whatever I wanted to do. Although they didn't say it was going to be easy. They never told me something was going to be easy. And I always use the story of multiple times growing up, I would fall asleep on our couch, after school or after a hockey tournament or something. And I obviously don't sleep with my braces on or anything, but I grew up in a 3-story house that was not ADA accessible or any of that kind of stuff. Thankfully I'm able to move around and don't really need specific ADA, compliance or anything like that. But I would actually just want to sleep on the couch until school the next morning. My mom, being the full-blooded Italian that she is, said, not only no, but hell no. You're coming upstairs, you're sleeping in your bed, and that's that. So as little as it might seem for a lot of people, just the act of me being extremely tired with very bad balance, having to walk up 13 or 15 steps, whatever it was, that was a workout in itself and something I actually had to mentally focus on, or else I'd fall down and actually hurt myself, which, you know, I actually have cracked my head open 4 times, possibly. One, I actually went down the steps as I saw my childhood dog go down the steps as a dog, and I was like, oh, that looks cool. I'm gonna try that. So I tried crawling down the steps, ended up cracking my head open. Sounded like a coconut cracking open on the linoleum floor, and ruined the day for my parents. But another time I was trying to ride an able-bodied stand-up bike and fell over on Mother's Day in my parents' cul-de-sac and hospital. So again, family treated me as you know, they would any other kid, which I think is extremely important. Don't treat the kid like they have a disability. Again, as I say multiple times, don't treat them like they have a disability or that they're fragile or they can't do something. And don't tell them everything that could go wrong as they grow up. They're going to figure it out one way or another. Things are going to go wrong no matter if you have a disability or not, right? So I guess scientifically you could say that like people with disabilities have a higher rate of depression and anxiety and I have all those kind of things. I never realized that, you know, disabilities had a higher rate of that until I got into working in a hospital. And to me, and when I say that to a lot of people, they're like, oh, your parents should have told you that. No, they shouldn't. I would not have gotten a gold medal if they would have told me, hey, you're going to grow up with anxiety and depression, because I didn't grow up with it. I got it later on in life as a kid or as a 20-something-year-old. I realized, you know, it's a thing. And the reason I think I you know, kind of still struggle with it, I guess, although many people have a lot worse struggles, is because I achieved this dream and now there are a lot of years spent trying to figure out what to do next, which everyone has that, whether you have a disability or not. So I'm not a big fan of you know, taking pity on people with disabilities because of their disability, because you see people, able-bodied people with a lot worse situations who legitimately have things to, you know, be upset and sad about, other than, oh, society's going to look at me differently or something. Use that to your advantage. I don't know, like, again, get into adaptive sports, get into adaptive fitness, that kind of thing, and show people that, you know, you're happy with what you have. And again, easy for me to say because I was born with a disability. There's people that acquire disabilities later on in life. And a lot of times, especially adults who acquire their disabilities later on in life, they are actually happier after they get their disability because a whole new world opens up and they can learn different ways to, you know, attack their dreams or, you know, help other people, right? So amputees, like veterans, people who get into accidents, those kind of things. Those are some of the happiest people after their accidents because they have a new lease on life. No matter what, you know, caused them to get into an accident, whether it was, you know, a drunk driving thing or a motorcycle accident, or they stepped on an IED, I think IED, yeah. You know, in battle, you know, in war, defending the country. A lot of times they're thankful that they're alive. So that gives them a whole new lease on life to figure out, okay, how can I use this to the best of my abilities? So all that is to say, having support of family and friends, key to any dream. No one gets to the top of anything without having support of someone or a group of people, right? And if you're blessed enough, as I was, the people that support you, it actually becomes their dream just as much, if not more in some cases, than it is yours. So, achieving my dream. So, as I mentioned, I started playing the sport of sled hockey. I got the bug at 8 years old, but I really started playing at like 4 or 5 years old. Hated it, cried a lot right at the beginning of it. I remember crying multiple times because I had to have a pusher when I was really young because I wasn't strong enough to push myself, and my pusher would bend down to tie her skates, and I would stop moving, and I would start getting really cold, so I started crying. Thankfully, my parents saw, hey, you know, he's still watching hockey and watching his brother when he's off the ice, so he must really like this. Let's just keep him involved and show him, you know, why he really, you know, keeps watching it and why he is interested in it, even though he might not realize he's interested in it as a, you know, 5-year-old kid. So 14 years old, tried out for the US development team and made it. I was one of the youngest players at the time to make it. There was one kid younger than me who's, you know, still to this day one of my best friends. 16 years old, tried out and was selected for the US national team. This was the summer of 2010, right after the Vancouver Paralympics. And I remember being at the Vancouver Paralympics, seeing the team at the time win the gold medal, and looking at my parents after I see them, come out of the runway with their medals and everything. And I legitimately said, clear as day, I can remember it, that's going to be me in 4 years. And it was. Now, that doesn't, I don't want that to come off as like a cocky thing. Growing up, where my family and I were a family of faith. So a lot of times nowadays, it's taboo to even talk about, which is crazy. But there's no way myself or my family would have gotten to where we've gotten or achieved the things we would have achieved without our faith, without our belief that everything happens for a reason. You're on the earth for a reason. And if you're still alive, your heart's still beating, there's a reason that you're there. And the reason is to help someone else, to help other people. Now, you don't realize that as a teenager trying to win the gold medal. A lot of times you do that just for yourself. But the cool thing about it was after I achieved the dream at 20 years old, and I proved myself and my parents right in saying that that's going to be me next time. That led me to becoming a personal trainer, realizing, hey, there's more than just, winning gold medals and getting material things. It's really more about using your body to the best of its ability and realizing what you can do and not focusing on what you can't. Because everyone, no matter, like I said, in the past, if you have a disability or not, doesn't matter. Everyone can do things better than some other people, and there are things that you can't do no matter how hard you try. It's a lot more rewarding, and you get a lot further in life focusing on the things you can't do. Otherwise, you're just kind of spinning in circles and you're stuck. So if I would have focused on, what was me, I have a disability, I can't move my feet, or I don't have calves, or I skip leg day all the time, would have never had the opportunity to achieve this and go to Sochi, Russia, play the Russians in the gold medal game on their home soil, watch Miracle on Ice the day before, actually 3 hours before the game, which is still my favorite movie of all time, followed closely by Forrest Gump, for obvious reasons. But we got to watch Miracle on Ice. Then 3 hours later, we had a lot of people were saying, oh, there's going to be a reverse miracle where the Russians are going to take out the US. It almost happened. Again, I think I mentioned we only won 1-0. And later it turned out that the Russians were doping. So yeah. So every Paralympics or Olympics, if a team or if a country doesn't have a team or an athlete in a specific sport, they have to make the team, right? They have to create the team. And Russia, it's a really big hockey country. It's one of like the top 5 probably in the world. So they didn't have a sled hockey team in Vancouver. So they had 4 years to create a sled hockey team. What top level team goes from literally nothing to almost #1 in the world in 4 years without some sort of help? So that never really occurred to us. And then months later, it came out that, hey, they were doping. What I find the coolest about it, we were still able to beat them with their performance enhancing drugs. I don't know what they were using. I didn't really look, that deeply into it, but still we beat them. So it was cool. That was almost, or actually that was, I guess followed up slightly by beating Canada in the semifinal game, because nobody likes Canada if you play for USA hockey. So all that amazing experience, again, wouldn't have been possible without the support of my family and friends and just the upbringing that I had. So how did I achieve this? A couple factors that drove me. Again, tremendous support from parents, brother, teachers, and my trainers that I've had. Never looked at my disability as a negative. And as we'll get into later, the last few years have been horrible for a lot of people, most people in the world. And I'm no different. I've had a lot of struggles and things, but my disability was never something that I ever looked down on myself for, or I never looked at it as a negative. I was never upset or angry with God or my family or anything. I never blamed my family for giving me a disability. What doesn't make any sense when people do that, but sometimes people's coping mechanisms is just to blame someone else, right? It's very sad, but that's unfortunately a harsh reality. And as I mentioned, my mom making me walk up the steps without leg braces on, or crawl up the steps, I guess, I was never coddled growing up. I was always, taught to try things as much as possible before asking for help. I think I've taken that to an extreme in some cases where my parents now are telling me you should be asking for help a lot sooner than you are instead of trying to actually do it when no human possible could do certain things without help, right? Especially winning a gold medal. So again, I give my parents all the credit in the world for never coddling me, and I discovered my passion for not only competing in adaptive sports, whatever it might be, to also just being physically fit and just being not really proud of my disability because I didn't make it, right? But just being happy with my situation, not seeing it as a negative, and trying to live to the best of my ability. Fitness defined me, and it improved not only my physical well-being, but overall mental health and well-being too. A lot of times nowadays, there's a lot of talk of, oh, don't let something define you, or this doesn't define you. Well, then what does? Like, we're all human. That's something that should define everyone, and it does define everyone. But there are humans that just lay around and do nothing all day, and you're not really contributing to society for multiple reasons. I'm not judging anyone for it, but as I said earlier, I truly believe there's one of the reasons humans are alive, and we're in one of the greatest countries, if not the greatest country to ever exist, is to help other people. Our lives are not about us. So to have fitness define me and to be defined as a Paralympian with a disability, all these kind of things, I'll use it to my advantage and just use that to help people. And again, see disabilities as, for what they can be, not what they aren't. So then came COVID. So growing up, again, I had an extremely, strong work ethic. Mental health was great. I was a really positive kid. A lot of struggles, with the national team and everything, and being one of the youngest players on the team. There were times where I felt like I just didn't fit in with, being a 16 to 20-year-old kid with players that were my age that I am now, up to 40 years old. We've had players. So fully grown men as a teenager, sometimes, you feel like you don't fit in certain cases, but still I was comfortable with my ability, that, my God-given abilities, and, what I've been able to do with them. So from March 2020 through most of 2021, all sled hockey stopped again. All of the world stopped. Up until that point, I had like blips here and there of thinking about mental health and, what sled hockey had meant to me and what just being physically fit had meant to me. But when gyms were closed for a period of time and when open, difficult for me to train wearing a mask, and I'm not, trying to be political and saying, things about masks or anything, but when you're training at a high level and you're doing high intensity interval training and really trying to exert yourself, masks definitely get in the way of that. So mentally for me, I just felt like I wasn't getting the training I should be getting while having to, wear the mask. So, again, by the grace of God, I found a house, moved out of the South Side that I was in at the beginning of the pandemic, found a house about 12 minutes from my parents. It had a shed. It has a shed in the back that was used just for, I think just, construction and just household things. I turned it into a mini gym, and it's maybe, a fourth or fifth the size of the room here, but plenty of room for me as a 5'4" kid. I got plenty of room to, bench press. I have a ski erg, which is just, used for cross country skiing. So I set up a weight bench that I set my legs on, and it's the exact motion of sled hockey where you have your arms up here, you pull down 2 straps on the erg, and you can pull, and it's a full cardio workout. So I've got those 2 machines and then a bunch of dumbbells and actually a leg press and a squat rack too. So again, divine intervention there, that all of that was opened up to me at just the right time. And even with all of that, still, unfortunately, I got away from how I was raised mentally, and I started living in the world, so to speak, and not the way my parents raised me. So I started believing, everything was terrible, everything's negative. There's no point in exercising. There's no sled hockey. So what's the point of trying to stay physically fit? And in a way, I stopped living for other people and started and also stopped living for myself as well. But as I mentioned, I think one of the main things our lives aren't about us or about other people, and especially that's very true in the health and wellness space, right? So unfortunately, my mindset just kind of plummeted along with, I'm sure a lot of other people. And I really felt like a fraud in a way. I had a lot of imposter syndrome for these last couple of years. Didn't really kick back into it and realize, hey, start living for other people, start, trying to be an example again of health and wellness with disabilities. That didn't start again until February 1st of this year. So February 1st of this year rolls around. I had a lot of long, hard talks with my parents. Growing up, I never really showed emotion or anything, like verbally. It was always physically kind of things. Never really had heart-to-heart talks very much. Still don't like those. Not a big fan. It's probably because I'm a guy. I don't know. But every time, like my parents and I have had a handful of heart-to-heart talks, and every time, I'm like, how is this helpful? I don't get it. Like, just let me pick things up and put them down. I don't know. Just let me lift weights. I don't know. Not good at talking about my emotions, but I'm still recovering from a lot of the effects, and it's a lot more mental than it is physical. And as you get more into just fitness in general, you realize that, not only life, but just, in a smaller scale, fitness is a lot more mental than it is physical. But now I have a newfound understanding of how important adaptive sports and fitness really are for individuals with disabilities like myself, and just how fitness is important for people in general. So that's why, as a personal trainer, I not only train people with disabilities, but able-bodied people as well. Because actually every time I've trained someone, an able-bodied person that I don't know, or I've talked to them about fitness, they always come in with the perception that, he's going to talk about, a very sad sob story kind of thing, and he's going to be very fragile. And I'm going to use him as inspiration that if he can do it, then I can do it. That whole phrase of if he can do it, then I can do it, just puts the person with the disability already at the disadvantage, because it like shifts the dynamic there of, oh, the person with the disability is already like a second or third class citizen, which our hockey teams have been called third class citizens before, which I don't know what a second class citizen would be. I'd rather be a second class citizen, if anything, right? But third class citizen just kind of made me laugh. I don't know, because they didn't say what the second class citizen. Again, having a disability and having a lot of probably undiagnosed concussions. My brain goes everywhere. I have a weird sense of humor. So again, I think, although I would never wish it to happen again, especially to the rest of the world, I think COVID really shifted my perspective on the importance of the mental health aspect. Although I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist or anything, that's one of my big focuses, to really shift people's perspective of not only other people's disabilities, but if they have their disability, don't expect the world to cater to you. Obviously, ramps and things in the ADA, there's a lot of good things in there, but don't expect it to happen. Very thankful that you guys were able to, shift around the whole building here. But even if you guys had moved in and just said, hey, we're going to have a gym and there were stairs here, I probably still would have come in anyway, just because that's how I was raised, to see ways around certain things rather than expect it to be catered to me. So a few things I picked up over the years and just kind of growing up with my family. Consistency over perfection. I'm sure you guys have heard of the 80-20 rule, and especially in like nutrition. So 80% of the time you're really strict with your nutrition. You really try to focus on healthy, lean meats, vegetables, high protein, that kind of stuff. And 20% you can kind of relax, like holidays, birthdays, that kind of thing. A lot of times nowadays, that's kind of, especially in the health and wellness space, it's shifting into not just nutrition, just life in general. Because there's a very big stigma and perception that fitness, you have to be crazy into it, and that has to be your whole life and everything. Where for me, I love that it's my whole life and it's kind of what defines me, but a lot of people, that's just not the case. So I know, obviously, you're aware that as a trainer and everything, you have to cater to the person you're training, not your own wants and needs. And I've had to learn that the hard way as a high level athlete. I'm like, let's just have everyone train like a Paralympian, and it'll be great, and everyone will get really strong and everything. And then you lose clients, and you're like, oh, okay, they probably didn't want to do that. So not everybody likes bench pressing as much as I do. So one of the things that actually, one of my favorite trainers out there, Jordan Syatt, he he's not really a influencer on social media, but he got like pretty popular on social media. But he still calls himself, just a personal trainer, just a regular trainer, and he set like powerlifting world records and everything. One of his things that he says is, you can't mess this up. doesn't say mess, he says another 4-letter word, but you know, we're a family-friendly building here, so you know, you can't mess this up. That's honestly one of the best quotes I've ever heard, I think, for fitness, because what it basically is saying is you can screw up as many times as possible, but as long as you're still alive, you can get right back on it the next day. Sounds very cheesy, but it's true, especially the longer you get into trying to either gain weight or lose weight or gain muscle. Hopefully you're not trying to lose muscle, but you know, if you're in some sort of exercise program and it's going for 8 to 10 weeks or whatever, however long, it's not like you're going to be completely motivated and, you know, disciplined and determined every day. So there are going to be days you're going to mess up. And that's one of the things I like about the quote is even if you mess up, just get right back on it the next day. One of the things in just rehab, I guess, and adaptive sports and just the disability community is start where you are. Starting is better than not doing anything at all. While that's very true, a lot of times it just stops at that. The conversation just stops there. People think, oh, I can just do the same thing and I can just do 1 push-up every day for the rest of my life and it'll be great and I'll get stronger. It's not how the body works. That's not how life works. You have to keep pushing past your comfort zone in order to get better at something. And I think just, I'm not a big fan of social media, but you know, it is what it is. We're able to do this, I guess, because of social media. So it has its benefits, but in a lot of ways, it's kind of shown, you know, highlight reels and things where it just shows someone doing one thing really well. And people think that, oh, you know, okay, so if I can't do that right away, then I might as well just not do anything at all. So then they get depressed and, you know, they don't really contribute to their lives what they could because they're, again, comparing themselves to someone else. So a lot of times that leads to complacency. And Tony Robbins, very popular motivational speaker, said, one of my favorite quotes by him, complacency leads to stagnation. And these last few years, I feel like I was the poster child for that. Coming from an extremely high level of sports to just nothing. There would be days where I'd just be slumped over on my couch, just not doing anything, just petting my dog. While I love petting my dog and he's, you know, amazing, he's helped me out a lot the last few years. Wasn't really helping the rest of the world. Wasn't helping my family. I was actually hurting my family more so than anything, because I was complacent and I was just resting on, okay, I achieved this one thing. No possible way I can do it again because of the way the world is. So why do anything at all? And growing up, one of the ways I learned how to walk actually was watching Santa Claus is Coming to Town, the animated movie, one of my favorite movies of all time. It's wonderful. Because there's a penguin in it. I really related to the penguin. You know, just the scene here, the Winter Warlock said it's difficult to really change. Chris Kringle, aka Santa Claus, says difficult. Why look here, changing from bad to good is as easy as taking your first step. Put 1 foot in front of the other, and everyone knows the song, put 1 foot in front of the other from Santa Claus is Coming to Town. If you don't, you should. Definitely look it up. It's very catchy and defined a lot of my childhood. But my parents would, or my mom specifically, and my, way too fast there. My physical therapist, along with my mom, would always play the song as I'm walking through my parents' house, and I'd be rewarded with M&Ms growing up. So M&Ms still one of my favorite candies because I was given a pack of M&Ms for every like 10 steps I took or something like that while the song was playing. So, a lot of these kind of, again, a lot of these quotes, a lot of these kind of titles are things my family has said over the years. So pay now or pay later, probably the most impactful quote my parents have ever said other than don't suck. Actually on the ice before games, my mom always just says don't suck because she doesn't like really watching the games, doesn't really like competition. So I don't know where it came from, but honestly, when I hear my parents say don't suck, that's actually more motivating than some like long speech kind of thing. Just kind of the way our family is. But I gain like so much confidence when they say don't suck, because to me that shows that they actually care about how I do and how I feel about how I do and the effort that I put into it. But one of the biggest things that they taught me growing up that I quite honestly forgot these last couple of years was pay now or pay later, which basically just means do hard things now so hard things in the future will be easier, right? So you don't have to deal with the difficulties now 5 years down the line or a year down the line or anything like that. Again, I gained, I think, 35 pounds as a 5'4" kid with spina bifida. and like a third of the muscles in my legs, I believe. Keep looking at my legs because I don't really have many muscles in there, and that's kind of just how I think about the last few years. I don't know, but yeah, pay now or pay later. Yeah, again, just really means our actions have consequences, and despite what you might see in the media, our actions and our consequences are solely based on what we do or what we don't do, based on our own lives. We can take action to minimize the stresses that we have, but we can never really truly get rid of stresses. And I think especially younger kids with disabilities, there's so much focus on, oh my gosh, I have a disability, I'm so much different than someone else, so much different than my friends, my peers, I'm getting made fun of, all these kind of things, that we just want everything to go away. And if it doesn't go away, then we just collapse, right? And that's, again, how I unfortunately was the last couple of years. But another thing that my parents kind of explained to me growing up, actions you take today have a positive or negative impact on yourself as well as those around you. With disabilities, a lot of times there's so much focus placed on the person with a disability, and we always hear growing up, oh, this is what's going to happen to you, or this is how you have to deal with this, like you, when in fact it actually has a ripple effect on everyone around you. So not only the actions that you do or don't do impact not only yourself physically and mentally, but everyone around you, especially those that care about you. So we can only control our attitudes and actions. I think that's a quote, or a phrase that is used quite frequently. But anxiety, procrastination, and comparisons can not only steal your time and mental health, but ultimately our joy and gratitude for life. And I truly believe that joy and gratitude are one of the cornerstones of the backbone to actually getting the most out of life that you want to get out of it. I always just kind of found this picture funny. That was a problem for future me, and now I am future me. So we always think that when we delay things or put them off, they're like, oh, I'll never have to deal with that or anything. When in fact, when you put them off and you have to deal with them at some point in the future, they're always worse. They're never better when you put things off. And again, I don't say all these kind of things to say like, oh, I know all these things now because of things I've gone through in the past, and I don't go through them anymore. I'm actually going through all this stuff. And when I was making this, I went through it and realized this is just as much for me, if not more for me, than it is for everyone else. I'm just verbalizing it so I can hear myself say it. So don't take yourself out of the game. This was, I thought originally my parents were saying this growing up, specifically relating to hockey. But then once hockey started like calming down, even though I'm still playing it, my parents started saying it as it relates to school and just life and goals and things. So I think it's a pretty cool quote. Don't take yourself out of the game. Everyone has shifts off that they take, meaning like days or weeks or even months maybe, or in my case, 2 years. But as long as if you have to take some time off, or if you have a lapse and whatever, life happens, get right back on it the next day or whenever you can. And you can't fail, right? You can have lapses, I guess, but you can't fail. We all have days where we're stressed, both physically and emotionally, especially with disabilities. There's always those comparisons. That person can walk, or that person can move their feet. I can't move my feet. Or if that person gets to walk up the steps and I have to use a wheelchair and find ramps that might be behind a building or something. Again, comparisons are the thief of joy. So if you're alive today, there's a reason for it. Again, I'm not trying to push my religion on anyone, but I truly believe that there's a reason for it, and the reason is way above and beyond ourselves. Again, we're alive to help other people. Monty Python. Anyone ever seen Monty Python? Yeah. Again, my sense of humor is way out there, but I just love this picture. And then that one from Waterboy. But get outside yourself and help someone else for their benefit. As a personal trainer, and the last few years, I definitely felt like a fraud, and I had some imposter syndrome. And nothing helped me more than helping other people in their fitness journey, even if I didn't look and feel like it. Because again, I was 30 to 35 pounds heavier than I currently am now. Even if I didn't look like a personal trainer, the knowledge that I had, I just started from there. Something as small as starting from, hey, just do a push-up today, tomorrow, the next week, and then do 2 push-ups the next week, or do 10 push-ups this week every day, and then start with 11 push-ups the next week every day. Just something small like that, that, you know, certain people can do. I've always found that if you've done things in the past, muscle memory kicks in, right? So if you've done something in the past, even if it isn't, you know, Paralympics or anything, if you've done something in the past that's really benefited you, if you've gotten away from it, if you, you know, have spent enough time on it, your body remembers, right? So whenever you get back into it, it actually comes back to you a lot quicker. It's like riding a bike. I think I've never ridden an able-bodied bike, and the one time I did, like I said, head went splat. So don't make a habit of not hitting daily goals, but don't beat yourself up to the point of paralysis, no pun intended. Realize your shortcomings and keep moving forward, always trying to be getting better every single day. And again, when you have traumatic issues, or not issues, but traumatic events happen in your life, a lot of times we can get stuck in woe is me. I'm never going to be where I was, because where I was so much better than where I am now, or where I could be, which that whole phrase is a lie, I think. If you keep moving forward, you can definitely find, you know, that you can do it. And everything happens for a reason. And actually, you know, your future is actually it can be a lot brighter than, you know, your past. Even if your past is wonderful and your childhood was amazing like mine. So final thoughts: consistency over perfection, pay now or pay later, and don't save it for your future self. Don't take yourself out of the game, even if, you know, you have a couple days where, you know, maybe a family member or a friend or someone passes away. I've had a lot of people, unfortunately, in my life pass away, most with disabilities, because of things. And again, I don't say it to judge, but a lot of times, whether I could have helped them from a physical or, you know, fitness standpoint, or they could have done something differently medically, a lot of things could be avoided if, you know, people just found their purpose or were searching for a purpose. A lot of times, you know, we just kind of go through the motions, don't realize that having a purpose and trying to live every day to find your purpose, if you don't know what it is, you know, that really gives life meaning the most. So, you know, if you're doing that every day, and, you know, you pick yourself up when you get knocked down, don't take yourself out of the game, you can't mess it up. You can't mess up life. And if you help one person every day or every week, and you just live your life trying to help others, eventually, you know, you'll be helping yourself indirectly. So for me, again, like I said a few minutes ago, this is for me just as much as it is for you. And it's important to offer individuals with disabilities at a young age the opportunity to experience a variety of adaptive sports and just different modalities of fitness, right? Just to see what their bodies can do rather than focusing on what they can't do. But also don't make a kid in a wheelchair run up a flight of stairs, because that's just that's messed up. So show individuals with disabilities and their parents and guardians, especially, and their family members. Honestly, as I mentioned before, oftentimes it's more important to show the family members and those around them the importance of making fitness part of their daily routine rather than a chore, rather than something that, oh, I'm going to be punished because I have to do this kind of thing. You start them young enough, they're going to see it as a blessing. They're going to see it as something they enjoy rather than something that, you know, I have to do this. Switching from I have to do this to I get to do this, or I'm able to do this, definitely helps, as cheesy as it sounds, but to kind of switch the words and the mindset there. But let them challenge themselves physically and mentally to break barriers and build confidence. So this shirt doesn't say it, but that's my motto for my personal training business: break barriers and build confidence. And when I first came up with it, or when I first kind of like said it in my head, I was like, that is the cheesiest thing I've ever heard. That's like the most base level, like basic thing ever. But unfortunately, I think it's unfortunate that, you know, everyone has to start there at this point, especially now, these last few years. There's such a lack of confidence, you know, in people at this point, that the smallest barrier can build the biggest confidence. And when you start from there, you never know where you're going to get, as long as you can kind of keep pushing yourself. Make sense? So again, sometimes I just keep rambling and talking and just figure out where it goes from there. I don't know. One of my biggest, I guess, gripes, and I don't want to end on a sour note or anything, but I know technology allows us to do a lot of cool things, especially like electronic technology, like, you know, having the live stream here and, you know, being able to record, I guess, on here. But I think nowadays we rely on technology a little too much, maybe, especially in fitness. Like, thinking, oh, if I just watch this video, or I wish they had a pill to, reduce fat, build muscle, or help my cardio or something. Like, we're waiting for this magic pill. Whereas if you would just look at it as my body is the magic pill, and the magic pill will not only help me physically and help me look the way I want to look, but feel the way I want to feel, and help the people in the way that other people need. I think if we don't rely on technology as much to do things that we can do ourselves and try to take the convenient and easy way out, then I think society and people will be a lot better off. Again, not being judgy or anything, just personal opinions and just observances. But when you get into a fitness routine in any sports or anything like that, you don't get into it to make it easier. You get into it to push yourself and make yourself stronger. And that's one of the things I try to tell, especially really young kids. Don't pray to have things be easier. Pray that you gain the strength to conquer things or to overcome certain things. Because when you wish or you pray that things are easier for you, that's honestly when they become harder, because you're internalizing it, but you're not doing anything about it. And I think a lot of us kind of experienced that the last few years. So kind of my, again, final thoughts, but hopefully all that made sense, and just kind of my thoughts the last few years, and things I really try to help out with my friends and the athletes and the clients that I work with. So if you guys do know anyone with a disability or any other able-bodied person that is interested in personal training from Paralympian and kids with a disability, I can't show you how to do a squat, but I can teach you. So yeah, if you guys do know anyone, whether you're here in person or on the Zoom here, feel free to give them my contact info. Didn't put it in here, but it's just dan@danmccoyfitness.com is my website, and then @danmccoyfitness is my social media. So that's about it. I did mention anyone who is interested. I did mention that I brought my medal and everything from Sochi, so folks that are here in person get to see it in person. And if you didn't show up, then sorry. But it's quite heavy, so we actually got this box here on our beds in the Olympic or the Paralympic Village after the games. Originally, we just got the medal itself, and it's about 1.5 pounds. So, and again, it's the exact medal that was in those pictures. So
That's really cool.
yeah, you guys can
I never knew.
hold
they
it
were
and
big. Heavy.
Yeah, no, I think at the time it was the heaviest gold medal that was created. I think before that, all of them, the 2002 medal was maybe 1/3 the weight of that. It was just one of those medals you usually get for like a high school sport or something, which I thought at the time the 2002 medal, and I think in a way the 2002 medal is cooler than mine, just because that's what started it for me.
Oh, yeah.
But the fact that this thing is kind of a semi-weapon